So I disagree with that, because I think that we need to be clear about what type of socialism that we are trying to promote. And I agree.
It worked into elections.
I agree.
They have like Ana Navarro. Like, who the hell is Ana Navarro?
Biden is not doing really well with the Latino vote in Miami. You know, a couple polls came out, and I want to show you guys a couple clips from Case Study QB that I clipped out from MSNBC. Here is the first one.
White consultants aren't going to save us. My brother, you work for Bernie Sanders. You are well versed in the world of woke. So what are you talking about?
What I'm getting at is I've been doing campaigns for 31 years. I'm the senior most Latino operative in D.C., so I've seen a lot of mistakes over my lifetime, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't see them again. And as Democrats, a lot of times we're like, we'll just go in and we'll do a little Spanish TV at the end. We'll start late. Don't worry about those Latinos. They'll come home. Well, that's just not the case. I finished just writing a book called Tio Bernie that explains that if you'll invest in this community, if you will teach them and show them that they are a persuadable voter like you would do a white woman in the suburbs, and spend the same amount of money courting the Latino vote, they will show up. And at the Democratic convention, we were complaining that there was no Latino representation. And then at the Republican convention, they were literally naturalizing citizens on the stage. Now, that don't mean you're going to get all of the vote, but just making those gestures that can skew off 1 point, 3 points, 4 points. And Donald Trump don't need to win all the Latino vote. He just needs to move 4 to 8% of that vote, and he's going to be reelected.
All right. So you guys just saw Chuck Rocha, who was part of the Bernie Sanders campaign, talk about how the Biden campaign, their strategy pretty much is like to have the Latino vote number priority 22 on their list.
It's nationwide. We they don't really care about the Latino vote as much. We always go and talk about immigration. Right. We know. And like he mentioned, George Bush, when he was there, he came in, he went into Univision. He did a little speech about, immigration. And he was able to get some Latino votes from Texas. And, that moved him. Obama came in and talked about he was going to fix immigration. He was going to be like all about Latino. And what did he do? He deported the most Latinos out of any president out there. So Trump is the same thing. Like everybody's always going to tell Latinos they're going to do stuff for us. And we know that, Gabe and Felipe, you guys could probably talk about this better than I can, but we know that the Cubans in Florida, they always go Republicans. All you have to do is, like they say, all you have to do is just get those, a little bit of those Puerto Ricans from Orlando. You get all those other Cubans that may be leaning Democrats. You get that 1, 2, 3 points, and Florida's going red.
Oh, it's hard because the Cubans are so far gone. They have lived a life that most of us in this country can't really comprehend, a life where they have no real power over their own self, and a lot of them left their country in a lot of really difficult ways, some on rafts, some on planes. It's just a really hard period, to the point that they eat up any of the spoon-fed Republican propaganda saying, Democrats are socialists, we should be scared of this. And having dealt with their own brand of socialism, which ruined their lives and ruined their country, leads them to just immediately believe it. They're like, Democrats are socialists. And it hurts the younger generation of Cubans, even the first-gen American Cubans, because I've had Cuban friends tell me, my family was ruined in Cuba. I can't vote for Bernie Sanders because he is a democratic socialist. It's the wrong take, because they're doing so much more. Progressives do a lot more for Latinos in general, and just for people, human beings in general. But when spoon-fed propaganda or like explained really hard concepts, no one is taking the time. Republicans are taking the effort and the steps to teach them what Republicans want them to know. The Democrats are just kind of throwing a law book at them and saying, but our policies are better, which is such a bad thing to do when the other side doesn't want to listen to you. When Cubans don't want to listen to why a Democratic tax plan would be better, obviously they're going to choose the side that makes it real clear cut, that says Democrats are socialists, they ruin your country, vote for us.
So, and there's a couple things. One is we need to stop looking at Latinos as just one block, because Latinos is tens of countries that all have different experiences and different things. So like Felipe really went into the Cuban experience, and one thing we haven't talked about it is a major factor of why many first and second generation Cubans hate Democrats is the Bay of Pigs invasion. So for people that don't know what that is, the U.S. was backing a group of Cuban Americans and Cuban exiles that were going back to Cuba to try to fight Castro. And when it came time for that invasion to take place, they had planted some weapons there. And when the troops arrived, the plan was for JFK to have aerial support so that when the Cuban revolutionaries that were there were trying to defend Cuba, they would counter with air support, and that would help the invaders come in and reclaim Cuba. But Kennedy decided not to send that air support. And because of that, those troops or those fighters that were sent over were slaughtered. It was a massacre. There's a Bay of Pigs memorial statue on Calle Ocho here in Miami that commemorates that, and it's one of the things that because of that, many Cubans, no matter what, will never. Now, the positive things that I've seen is that once you get to like third generation Cubans, they see what it's really about. They see that they don't look at the word socialism as a boogeyman. They look at policies as they are, and they're a lot more Democrat party and more left than their parents and grandparents. So once you get a couple generations removed from that, people realize that, hey, maybe we are seeing some authoritarian tendencies from the Republican side versus the Democrat side. So we have to look at it, and we have to understand what they've gone through, and we have to see the bright spots that Cubans, younger Cubans, third generation Latinos in general are much more progressive.
But the Biden campaign is not doing anything to reach out to them. Yeah. So we're like, hey, Trump is bad. If you same comment, like we're like, oh, if you vote for Trump, you ain't black. It's the same kind of concept. Like, oh, if you vote for Trump, then you're not Latino, or they're not doing anything to reach out. Yeah. And we know that the Latino population is the fastest growing minority population. Yeah. And we know that as we continue to grow and we're becoming more and more and more knowledgeable about politics, we are going to get out there and vote. We may stay home. It's going to be a lot of that's what I'm saying. Like in election like today, like this year, you cannot play with 1 to 2, 3 points. You can't be playing around. You have to be able to get these people to go in.
You can't leave any points on the table. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Yeah. And another, and a lot of people in America say, forget this, Puerto Ricans are United States citizens, and a lot of people always forget about this. Like they are not immigrants. They are, United States citizens. They have the right to vote right away. And a lot of them are migrating to the United States to be able to, because, everything that happened with the hurricanes and the economy. Yeah. And they're coming in and they're moving to states like Florida. They are moving to states like Arizona. They are moving to states like Texas. States that if you say like, hey, we need you and this is why we need you, they'll be able to come out and vote and not stay home.
So John,
not only this is why we need you, but this is why we can do to help you.
Yeah, to that point though, John, I thought originally when everything happened with the hurricane with Puerto Rico that would be all Democratic. I guess that was my faulty view that would be a whole bunch of Democratic votes coming to Florida, but we've seen in the latest polling that Trump has been putting more money into the advertising, into Spanish-speaking advertising, into targeting the Latino community more than Biden. And he's converting those people into Republican votes or maybe not voting at all.
A good number of the people that are coming from Puerto Rico are the people that can leave Puerto Rico. That means there are people with money. So a good number of them already
good point.
Could be persuaded to be voting Republican for their own self-interest. And that also goes towards a lot of the Cubans, because they have a little bit of kind of they had their version of white privilege while they were in Cuba, like their families back then. Because before the Castro, it was basically plutocracy over there, and it was rich people running everything. And the reason why they were leaving so quickly is because they were getting their stuff taken away. So
you talking about Cuba
escaping Cuba? Yeah. It's rich people escaping Cuba, and that's why they hate socialism, because they got their stuff taken away, even though they were benefiting from living in an unfair government system where they were being, they have white privilege pretty much. And some of the people that are leaving Puerto Rico are the people that have the means to be able to travel outside of the country. So it's not like all of them, these Latinos are coming in. That's why we're not a monolithic, and there's a lot of people, different socioeconomic backgrounds in the Latino country that are just leaning, either way.
Felipe.
I disagree with that statement, Carlito. I work a lot in real estate and mortgage, and a lot of the clients that I get and I talk to are Puerto Ricans that lost everything. Like a couple that have gone through bankruptcy, that are staying with brothers and sisters in the United States, that are just trying to make do with what they have. But when you have nothing, just reorganization is just a plane ticket away. When you have family in Florida, you need just a couple, like $50-$100 to get a flight over.
If you have family in Florida. Yeah, that's one thing. And and to be clear, I didn't say it's all of them. I said there's a good number of them. I know some myself that they just and I know people even from other countries that they're actually going to Puerto Rico to vacation now because it's not cheap to do stuff, if you go to the correct area. So we got some Latinos that they just care about their money too, just like rich Republicans.
Yeah, and then you got to look at it like when you look at Univision, it's run by the same corporate media. That stuff. So that message is that they're selling you that, Trump is not as bad as people won't make you seem. Like, Trump is not really, he has helped Latinos. He hasn't deported more people than Obama. And remember, Obama was vice president. Biden was Obama vice president. And see, the Biden campaign go back. They see how bad they doing with Latino, and they still don't care. They Look, AOC is the most famous Latina politician they have. And they're not even asking her anything, even though we don't know what the inside is, if she wants to speak or not speak. But even Chuck was on the Bernie campaign, and you saw how the Bernie Latino support went off the roof.
Yeah.
They're saying that the Latinos, like the Democratic Party, all they do is pander to the Latinos. They don't care about, but they're not even pandering right.
Yeah.
They could have just put AOC to talk about whatever, even if it's nothing that they will ever implement that Biden doesn't really care about, and just let her give her 5 minutes to talk. And it would have made a lot of people think, hey, man, at least they're trying, but they're not even doing that. Meanwhile, Republicans, they're putting up people that don't even know that Puerto Ricans are citizens up there, but at least they got a Spanish last name, so at least they're pandering somewhat.
Let me show.
They have Ana Navarro. Like, who the hell is Ana Navarro? Like,
let me show this clip.
They have it to get Latino excited to go for Democrat. Like, who the hell is she?
I want to show this clip. This is more a clip that went along with what Gabe was saying earlier. But this thing went viral as soon as I put it out on Case Study QB.
Hi, nothing against Bernie Sanders, but Sanders' brand of socialist policies does not play well among a lot of Latinos. Well, at least in the general election. I know he did well in the Democratic race, but not in general elections, especially in Florida.
There's a reason the Trump campaign continues to push this idea that Joe Biden is merely a vessel for what he calls the radical left, Bernie Sanders, AOC, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see it's getting some traction in the Hispanic community, even if others roll their eyes and say, wait a minute, look at Joe Biden's career over 50 years. He's been a centrist and has been criticized.
All right. So what do you think about two white guys saying, Bernie during the campaign, that little 30% or, that he was getting during the campaign that basically allowed him to kill in Nevada, allowed him to do so well, even after the 60 minutes report where he talked Bernie Sanders had that gaffe where I personally think he didn't really have to go into it, and he should have dodged the question about Castro. Even after that came out, it showed that he was still ahead in certain polls with the Latino vote. What you guys think about that? Go ahead.
Nevada Latinos aren't Florida Latinos. Like Nevada Latinos are a completely different demographic than Florida Latinos.
Okay.
I think the socialist brand needs to go in the garbage. The socialist brand needs to be taken, thrown in the garbage disposal, flushed down the toilet. It's a terrible branding, and it's not socialism. Socialism is the government owning the means of production. That's not what we want with Medicare for All. It's not what we want with pretty much anything. That we don't want socialism, and it's a terrible brand. It's not socialism, and it's really more what we want is a capitalist society that is more compassionate and more fair, and it allows equal opportunity to succeed. Socialism and communism is an equal outcome. We don't want equality of outcomes. We want to give everyone the same starting line, and then as far as you can run, and you can run the race fairly. But what we have is groups of people that are starting the starting line 20 miles behind in a marathon. So that doesn't make any sense.
So this is a good discussion.
We have to reject it. We have to reject.
This is a good discussion.
The democratic socialism at any time it comes up.
So I disagree with that, because I think that we need to be clear about what type of socialism that we are trying to promote. And I agree.
It hasn't worked in 2 elections. How many more, not have it work in 3 more elections? It hasn't worked.
I agree. Hold on real quick, Carlito, real quick. I agree that in certain places you have to be strategic about how you talk about socialism. I think that after Bernie won Nevada, I think he should have pivoted away from the word and try to be more inclusive at that point. But I think there's something about trying to rebrand socialism as a positive thing, which has been on the uprise. It hasn't hit it yet, especially in Florida. And I wanted to get back to Felipe on that question, but go ahead, Carlito. Make your point.
It's like we've seen, even though Bernie didn't win, what he believes in was favorable in exit polls. So it could be about a little bit of branding or whatever, but the more important thing that I want to mention, that I mentioned to you guys a lot, is the Overton window. That's why sometimes when Gabe says some stuff that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe he said it. But I'm glad you did anyway, because you could shift that window to what is acceptable. You know, before, a public option was seen as like extreme. Now that's what Biden is considering, because Medicare for All was considered extreme. We got to keep pushing the limits, just like the Tea Party did, because then what we talk about being this centrist, like democratic socialism, will become that as it is in other European countries that we've seen. So we gotta not be so afraid to say what we mean, and we just gotta try to educate the voters and be more clear and forceful in what we mean, and don't allow other people to brand us.
So Felipe,
why would we waste the political capital on trying to rebrand, trying to brand something and trying to reframe it when it's not the right word? Socialism is not the right word. If it was the right word, we could try, but it's the wrong word.
But Bernie always says democratic socialist. That's what he is, and that's.
Forget what Bernie says, man.
Go ahead, John.
Bernie had a 5-year head start in front of all the other Democratic candidates, and he blew it because he pushed too hard on the socialism thing.
So Felipe,
that's not why he blew it.
Felipe,
the difference.
I want to ask Felipe a quick question, then you could finish your thought, Felipe. So if Bernie Sanders would have won the nomination and it came to Florida, do you think he would lose to Trump?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
No.
100%. He would lose Florida to Trump.
No, dude, he would lose the Cuban vote. He would lose the Cuban vote to Florida. Dude, the problem is that you're going to have, it's just go back to that clip. You have 2 white guys talking about nothing, that don't understand anything, how the Latino vote really works. And they're going back, and we always got put, and the problem that we always have is that we are automatically put in this little box, and it's all about Florida. Because Florida is such a important, sweet state, and it goes back to what we were talking earlier. The Cuban vote, automatically, they're always going to be classified as Latino, whatever it is, right? So the Cuban vote always going to go Republican. So they always want to, you got 2 white guys sitting here in corporate media talk about socialism and talk about this not working, but they don't understand that a New Yorker Latino and a California Latino and a Texas Latino and Arizona and Nevada Latino, they're all different. And the problem, like, why don't they talk about California? Bernie won California, the Latino vote over 80%. So why didn't they talk about that? Why didn't they talk about Biden? You know,
you might lose the old Cubans in Florida, but you could win the young ones, and then you could win in Texas, you could win Arizona, you could make some roads in New Mexico. I mean, come on now.
What about the point? What about the point that hold on, real quick. Let me make this point. What about the point that the governor, Andrew Gillum, almost won, and to me, it was when he dropped Medicare for all that he lost that gubernatorial race. Go ahead, Felipe.
Bernie's policies are the most popular. They're popular. Some of them have upwards of 70% across all voter blocks, across the entire electorate. So Bernie's policies win. The problem is Bernie, the individual, the vessel in Florida, would not have won because of the Democratic Socialist branding. But his policies, as they are all popular. And we saw that with Gillum. Gillum was about to win the governorship until he went away from Medicare for all. People don't, when you talk about a policy, and when you talk to, I don't care if it's a Democrat, if it's a Republican, if you talk to them on a one-on-one level and talk about certain policies, most of us agree. You know, it's only the real few too far gones, but you could probably get 60 to 70% of the population to agree on many things. Florida, as a conservative state, as we say it is in the term conservative, when you look at when we've done ballot initiatives, marijuana, a progressive policy legalization passed, even though the state government is doing everything they can to block it even after it passed. Restoring voter rights for felons, it passed, and that's probably one of the most progressive policies. So on an individual basis, policy by policy, our progressive policies are popular. I think, again, going back to Bernie wouldn't know won Florida because of the word socialist. That's literally it, not because of any of his policies.
Go ahead, Felipe.
To tack on to what Gabe was saying and to kind of come after Carlito a little bit, there's no reason to need to rebrand socialism. The Tea Party, you mentioned the Tea Party earlier. The Tea Party was starting at square zero. Starting at socialism is starting 100 steps back, just 100 steps behind everything else, because there's no reason to defend something that historically has such a negative connotation
but nobody
historically has never worked.
Who calls Bernie a socialist?
Everyone.
Bernie, listen, I'm not talking about rebranding socialism, because Bernie doesn't call himself a socialist, okay? Is the entire term democratic socialism, social democrat, whatever you want to call it. The point is, with the Tea Party itself, you don't have to step away and just throw it in the trash. Bernie, as a candidate, he could have moderated himself, but he could have people under him push the same thing and say the same thing, because I understand as the top of the party, the top of the ticket, you want to have broad appeal, but you could still have Nina Turner go out there and say the same things. You could have anybody under him, AOC, whoever, you know, because of the Tea Party in the bottom, they say whatever the hell they want. The representatives, they'll say any crazy thing they want. At the top, they don't say it, but they're listening and they want to cater to these people who vote for them. So they might not say themselves, but they're listening. So you could have somebody, you know, that's anybody from the House of Representatives that supports Bernie go out there and stomp and say democratic socialist, not socialist, no socialism. They could say democratic socialist as much as they feel like it, and it doesn't necessarily need to affect what Bernie does. Bernie made a lot of mistakes, and you know, he just couldn't moderate himself. He couldn't adapt. You know, so maybe he would have lost Florida because of that, but it's not because of the term itself.
Yeah, like we know Case usually like to give Bernie a pass, and we know Bernie ran, you know, there was support rain campaign, and we also know, again, like the media drives the narrative, right? Every time that anyone came in there, like AOC or anything, they always would be like, how are we going to pay for it? Where is it going to come from? Where my tax dollar money is going to come? How am I going to, like, they always drive the narrative. So the media really, like, and they believe in this, you know, because now they all of a sudden, you know, talking about Biden and option, and you know how this is popular and UBI, and that's the narrative. But when Bernie's there, they drove that Castro issue. They drive the whole socialist issue on. It's whatever they want until they really buy on it, and people are starting to really listen. We always, no matter what term we come up with,
all right,
they don't like it, they're going to find a twist to it to not like it and get people not to like it either.
You don't have to make it easier for them either.
You got to be aggressive though.
All right, guys, we're gonna leave it up to you in the comments below. Let us know what you think about this whole topic. We just had a healthy discussion about this, and you think that the Biden campaign, are they doing enough to reach out to the Latino vote? Do you think they're going, specifically in Miami? Let's stick with Florida. We're gonna find out sooner or later in November if Trump got the Latino vote. But let us know, give us your prediction early, and let us know what you're thinking in the comments below. Also, do you think that Bernie Sanders or progressives should continue to use the word democratic socialism? Do you think the word socialist is a toxic term that's going to turn people away? Let us know in the comments below. Like and subscribe.
Give a like if you agree with Gabe and Felipe. Give another like if you agree with John and I.
There you go.
And Izzy.
And Izzy.
And Izzy.
Like Trump, vote twice.
Give it so Izzy, subscribe and like.
All right.